Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Kimberly Crossland. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Welcome back to another episode of the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. We're so excited to have you back. I am your host for this week, Kimberly Crossland, and I am so thrilled to be bringing you Anna Fagan. Anna Fagan is a full-time RVer who teaches piano out of her RV. If that's not an unusual way to earn a living from the road, I don't know what is, and I absolutely love it. As a musician myself, and as obviously an RVer myself and an entrepreneur, I just knew that I had to talk to her. So just a little bit of background before we dive into that conversation with her. Anna has a bachelor's degree in piano performance from the University of Central Florida, and she now teaches students from her RV, like I said. She also serves as the president of the Florida State Music Teachers Association Foundation, and she's had many other positions. So you are going to learn so much about her, not only her background, how she runs a business teaching piano from her RV, but then also just more about her RV lifestyle in this podcast episode. Cannot wait for you to dive in. Go take a listen. Let's get right to that conversation. Anna, thank you so much for joining me. I knew I had to reach out to you when I heard about your business. You're a full-time RVer. You teach music out of your RV. Specifically, you teach piano, which typically pianos are big, and it's not something you can just put into a case like a guitar or violin or fiddle or ukulele or, all the smaller instruments. A piano is bigger. So I knew I wanted to talk to you. I knew I wanted to reach out to you and just get to know a little bit more about your RV lifestyle, your business. So let's get right into it. How about we start off with the RV lifestyle? Tell us a little bit about your RV living, your RV situation, how you travel, everything.
Yeah, sure. My husband and I have a Fleetwood Bounder. It's a Class A motorhome, and we have been full-time living in it for almost 2 years. We took delivery on it in February of 2021. And then we're coming up, like I said, on April 1st will be our 2-year anniversary living full-time, mostly in Florida, but we have traveled a little bit back and forth to have some repairs done as well.
Nice. So you typically, like you said, you just travel around Florida. Do you move often? How often do you guys change locations?
Well, we are 1,000 Trails members, and so we move about every 2 to 3 weeks. We've been in Central Florida primarily because up until October of last year, I was also holding a church musician job. So we needed to stay close, about an hour away from that job since I had to be at the church a couple times a week.
Awesome. So what inspired you to go full-time RVing?
Well, the pandemic, I suppose, kind of accelerated all of it. And my husband and I have always been interested. I guess we thought when we were retired, we would start exploring the U.S. in an RV. We had never really talked specifically about living in one full-time. I'd always joked about having to have a piano, of course, in whatever we were in, and we couldn't even imagine how that would happen. And then in 2019, we decided to make it like a 5-year plan. And we started looking at different models, trying to decide, did we want a motorhome? Did we want a towable? Trying to narrow down manufacturers. And then when the pandemic forced all music teachers online in March of 2020, I discovered that I really enjoyed teaching online. And we thought, well, why don't we just accelerate this whole process? And we did.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's interesting because so many people did hit the road full-time, or more so full-time, or like what I call the messy middle, where they go more than just the weekend warriors. I shouldn't say just the weekend warriors. They go more than just on weekends, but you have stuck with it. And I know a lot of people haven't. So tell me a little bit more about like your favorite aspects of the RV lifestyle.
Well, I suppose one thing that made it a little bit easier is I have always loved change. I've loved to change things up. Mostly, well, what I discovered during the pandemic is I liked change as long as I had a pretty good level of control over what was changing. And with RV life, especially for us moving every 2 or 3 weeks, we have a different backyard all the time. So the inside of the RV is pretty much the same. And really, what surrounds me, the area that I'm sitting in, teaching in, is pretty much the same footprint as I had in the house. When we were living in a sticks and bricks house, everything's just a little bit closer.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about that because this was really compelling when you mentioned it to me. Tell me how you have your piano inside your RV.
Well, initially, what we thought we would do is get a motorhome that had at least 2 sofas, and we thought we would pull one of the sofas out because, of course, when you're talking about putting a keyboard in, and I have a full-size Yamaha Clavinova keyboard. It's 88 keys. It's in a furniture-style cabinet. It's what we call a weighted digital keyboard, so it really feels and sounds very much like my nice baby grand piano. But, you got to think about how much things weigh in an RV. And so we thought, well, if we pull the sofa out, it would be a comparable size to the piano. So we looked at that. We looked at cargo carrying capacity. Anybody looking into living full-time in a motorhome or any kind of RV knows that that's a big thing. How much weight are you going to be pulling down the road? And so it was suggested to us that we might consider getting a bunkhouse model because not only is it on a bigger, heavier chassis, which means you can have more weight, but we wouldn't be losing any seating space. So my husband is pretty handy with building things. So he pulled the bunks out, pulled some drawers out that were under the bunks. And it's really the perfect size for the piano. And I've got an overhead webcam, a side webcam, microphones, all of my hardware, software. It's all right here.
That's excellent. Because I can imagine when you're hitting the road, like you had said, as long as I can bring my piano with me, I want to be able to hit the road. And as a fellow musician, I can fully relate to that. I grew up with my grandma playing piano. Every one of my family members has a beautiful piano in their house. So I get the allure of it. I get the desire to not want to have to leave it behind. You found such a great solution for getting the same type of experience inside such a small space. So I think a lot of people forget that you can do so much with RVs now. I mean, it's amazing. So let's talk about your business specifically, because now you have the piano inside your rig. Now you're also teaching online. Tell us a little bit more about that setup, because I've got some questions about how that can relate to the RV lifestyle specifically. So tell us a little bit more about your business model.
Yeah, well, again, if you were teaching private music lessons in the spring of 2020, if you wanted to continue, you had to be willing to go online. My husband has a weakened immune system, so I just let all my families know right off the bat that I wasn't sure when and if I would ever be teaching in person again. So moving from a home setup into the RV, I suppose one of the most pressing things that we had to conquer was internet. And if you go on any Facebook group, if you go listen to any podcast, people are always talking about what's the best internet, what's the cheapest internet, and those two things don't live in the same house. You can have great internet or you can have cheap internet that's not so great. But if your business depends upon it, then I think it's really upon you to have redundancy. And so anybody that lives in an RV full-time and does any kind of remote work knows that internet is an ongoing process. Things change all the time. Oh my gosh. So we got Starlink as soon as we could. We've had Starlink I think we got it last May, but we've always had a variety of other options. And so now you name an internet provider and we have access to them. So every morning I get up, I reboot my computer just to clear out all kinds of junk files on my laptop. And then I do speed tests to see who has the best internet for our location and whatever given day it is. So today, T-Mobile was the winner, but we have the T-Mobile 5G home internet. We have Verizon 5G home internet. We just picked that up at the Tampa RV show in January. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's had great speeds. We have Starlink. We have an AT&T hotspot through FMCA. Of course, we have our phones, but we rarely ever have to use that.
Oh, that is nice. I can imagine, especially because the way that your business model is, let me know if I understood it correctly, but you have both in-person meetings. When you say in-person, it's face-to-face on Zoom or one of the, the video to video, I guess, conferencing, but it's that one-on-one conversation, right? And so you need to have that back and forth, and you can't especially with music, you can't afford to have those glitches and those delays because then you can't truly listen to what your students are doing or they can't listen to your feedback as easily. So I can imagine how important that is. But then you also have personalized videos, correct?
Yeah, most of my students are taking weekly lessons. And as you said, those are live. I do some lessons on Zoom. There are a couple of other platforms that were developed specifically for music teachers and offer really much better sound, but the same kind of video conferencing. But you need good, I kind of laugh when I say high speed because when I was living at home, high speed meant something totally different than it does now on the road. But really, I'm able to do lessons. I have done lessons with upload speeds around 3. Which just kind of blows my mind. I know. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. If I can get double digits on an upload, I'm really excited. This morning, I was shocked. I got the best T-Mobile speeds I've ever gotten. This morning, my T-Mobile was 303 down, which I don't even know that I ever got over 300 when I was in a house, and 35 up. So that's what we're using right now. But yeah, and of course your student on the other end needs to have, pretty good, reliable internet. And then you're always talking about, who else is online with you right now because of bandwidth issues, with the student at home. I also offer asynchronous lessons. So I will do recordings, personalized recordings for students if they're unable to come to a lesson, or if I have a couple of students that I've had in the past that have seasons where regularly scheduled lessons just aren't possible for them in their work schedule. So I do asynchronous lessons for them.
Yeah. And I like that you said that because it leads me right into my next question. Because another element, we've talked a lot about the Wi-Fi and the connectivity of being on the road and how much of a struggle that is, especially when you're running a business. But there's also travel days and time when you're in flux. And especially one of the beauties of living the RV lifestyle is you don't have to only travel on Saturdays and Sundays when there's heavy traffic and, heavy traffic not only on the roads, but also at the campgrounds. And so it's just kind of one of those luxuries that we get to travel different days. How do you systematize your schedule so that you can deliver your service? You can still show up and do that one-on-one work with your clients, but not have to worry about travel days or sacrifice travel days? Or do you structure your business around your travel days or your travel days around your business? How do you set that up?
Well, my husband also has a remote job. He only works that job 3 or 4 days a week, maximum. And so we do schedule our travel days to some extent around our work. Like I said, until the October, I held down a church musician's job. So that had a big impact on our travel days. And typically we would travel on Fridays or Mondays because I don't start teaching until mid-afternoon on those days. Going forward, since I don't have the church musician job anymore, I'm planning most of our travel days on Saturday with an idea that we could get to a new location, explore it a little bit, and then have all day Sunday before we both then go back to work on Mondays. Travel days, I imagine, are always going to have some kind of an impact on my business because, as you know, things don't always go as planned. There have been times that I've made a reservation, we show up, and something has gone awry with that reservation. I remember a year ago, oh my gosh, I had a 2-week reservation that totally messed up online, and we ended up scrambling for a place to live and work. One thing about being an RV, you learn a lot about power. And so we have a generator, but we also have 2 Blue Eddies, which are like big lithium iron batteries, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it if you're not familiar with those. But I can run my whole setup off of one of those batteries, off of one of those Blue Eddies. And I did it, like I said, about a year ago. I was in a church parking lot while my husband was in school in Tampa. It was a Boondockers Welcome Church, and it was a Monday, and they said, yeah, you're welcome to spend the night, and we don't have anything going on Monday. So I spent the whole day working in their parking lot off the batteries.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It's an adventure. And again, I enjoy a challenge. I enjoy learning to do different things. So it was okay.
I love that you said that because there is such a tenacity that you have to have. I mean, you said earlier that you love change, and so this lifestyle suits that desire for a good change, not the kind of change that you're out of control like 2020 was, but this kind of a change where you can have a different backyard every day or every week, maybe not every day, that's be a lot, but every week or every few weeks. So that is nice that you can have that. And then there's also the change of not knowing when things are going to go a little bit wrong. You might get, I know RVs often get blowouts. We've certainly had our fair share on the road as well. No matter how well you check your tires, it just happens. And there's this need to be more flexible. So how have you designed your business then? Have you set up a schedule? I know you talked a little bit about that buffer room, but how do you design your schedule so that you can buffer in a little bit more of that flexibility? And do you have a backup plan for your students? Because I can imagine that they're very compelled by the fact that their piano teacher lives in an RV. That's a fun story, a fun backstory. It kind of automatically makes you a little bit unique, which is awesome and fun. But is there something where, because of that, are they more empathetic? Do you attract other RVers more just because they are drawn to that lifestyle? I'm just curious about your clientele and how they respond.
I have a few students. I don't have any students who are full-time in an RV. I have several students who are, as you said, weekend warriors or whatever that have RVs. And so it's fun to kind of swap stories with them. But, everyone doesn't matter what your living quarters are, things come up and people need to change their schedules. And so I try to be as flexible as I am with my students when they need to change their schedule. And they have on occasion been, somewhat flexible with me. Last September when Ian blew through, I don't know what part of the country you were in, but I was in Central Florida nervously watching, Hurricane Ian and where was it going to land. And when it became apparent that it was going to be a little more centralized than we originally thought, my husband and I drove down to Southeast Florida and mooch docked in a friend's driveway for the rest of the week. And so I taught from her driveway. She doesn't have a homeowners association, so there wasn't any worry with that. She has a big semicircular driveway. We had stayed with them before. She had put in a 50 amp service for us, so we had power. So it's, we're flexible, and I enjoy, I suppose that's something that I always talk about with clients before taking them on. It's just an understanding that it's good to be kind and to be flexible with each other.
Yeah, I saw you have that on your profiles too, and I just love that. I think it's an important message all around. I think it's an important message for business owners to be kind to ourselves when we have that need for flexibility, and then also for us as consumers to also be kind to others who need that flexibility, and then when others need that flexibility, to be kind to them too. So I love that message, and I think you do a great job of conveying that message across your social media. Speaking of social media and marketing in general and attracting clientele, talk to us a little bit about your marketing strategies, because this is kind of a unique space. And I mean, wanting to learn the piano in and of itself is not unique. A lot of people have the desire to learn and know the piano. But I'm just wondering how, since your business is all online, how do you approach marketing? Because there's so many different ways you can. So I'm curious, what is Anna's way to approach marketing?
Well, a wonderful thing about teaching online is that I can teach anyone from anywhere, depending upon the time of day, I suppose, that I'm comfortable working. But I have students who, the bulk of my students are still in Florida, but I have a student, for instance, who has 2 homes in Florida and he's from France. So when he's overseas, we just adjust his lesson schedule a little bit to accommodate him while he's in France. And that works out fine. So as far as marketing goes, I've had a business page on Facebook for many years, and I had started an Instagram page that I eventually linked into that Facebook page. So I have an Instagram page and a Facebook page that is aimed at attracting new students. I'm mostly looking for teens and adults, just because I find that the real little ones, I enjoyed working with them in person, but a 6-year-old doesn't do really well. Maybe it's just that I don't do really well with a 6-year-old in online.
Not. I have a 6-year-old, so.
Okay. So I'm mostly looking for adults. And then after we had been in the RV for a while, I had so many people who, fellow teachers who were just really interested in this lifestyle. So I started a second Instagram page that's RV Piano Teacher. And it's mostly aimed at information for other RVers and information for other piano teachers. And it's linked to my personal Facebook page because mostly what I'm putting on there is travel information. On travel days, I'll usually run an Instagram story so people can kind of get an idea of exactly what's involved with moving all of this around. And then also just as things happen, and I learn how to cope with the ins and outs of living in something that produces a hurricane and an earthquake every 3 weeks. It's been really interesting sharing that with people.
Yeah, I'm sure they're compelled. I obviously have taken a peek at your Instagram account as well. And I think you do such a good job of incorporating both your love of music and the RV lifestyle on that RV Piano Teacher. So I think you do, like I said, I think you do a really good job. You also have a website.
Yes.
Do you do SEO? Is that where you primarily are driving people to your website, of course, but I already know the answer to this question. So I'm just going to put it out there. But you do free trial calls and things like that just to get people the free online consultation, I guess is specifically what you call it. And what goes into that? And I'm asking because I know there is a love-hate, especially with the RV lifestyle and wanting to have that freedom, that flexibility. This is why we start as an RV entrepreneur. We want to have that time freedom, location freedom. But there is such power to just having a conversation, getting on the phone with somebody and just talking to somebody. So I'm curious your experience with those conversations and how, not necessarily how they've worked to convert, although that is compelling, but just what you've gotten from having that experience with people.
Well, the free consult, yeah, I did that even when I was teaching in person because, not everyone's personality is going to mesh with yours. And I'm not the right teacher for anyone, regardless of whether I'm in person or online. But most people don't really understand how it would be possible to teach someone remotely how to play the piano. I guess they're imagining I'm going to take their hand in my hand and show them. But there's so much to be said for online lessons and a student becoming independent. I can also, it's wonderful to be able to see exactly the instrument that a student is working with in their home. Because when I was teaching in person, I have this beautiful baby grand piano and they would spend 45 minutes once a week in a lesson with me, but then they would go home to a keyboard that maybe wasn't even touch sensitive. And then they'd come back to their lesson and we'd talk about, this should be softer. And maybe I wouldn't even realize that they couldn't even do that on their instrument. So it's a great opportunity, not only for me to get to know a potential student, but for me to find out what kind of an instrument they have, what type of music they're interested in playing. Most all of my students are focused on playing for their own enjoyment. I have a number of students who are in middle and high school who are playing for their school jazz bands or that kind of thing. So I do a lot of work with chords and lead sheets and improv and stuff like that for those students. I have a few students who go through assessments and competitions, but by and large, what I'm focused on is helping students to realize just a dream of playing piano for their own enjoyment.
I love that. And I think it's so important. The reason why I wanted to ask you about that is because it's really important just to have that awareness going into these kinds of calls and these kinds of conversations that it's okay if I'm not for everybody, but when I'm able to attract the people who I work the best with and I know I'm going to get them the best results, they're going to have the most fun for you. They're going to have the most fun playing piano. They're going to really enjoy digging into this type of music and learning something new. That's exciting, not only for them, but also for you. And so for us as RV entrepreneurs, being able to take our marketing and be able to design not only a lifestyle where we get to have that time freedom, that financial freedom, and then also the freedom to choose who we get to work with is just, it's so powerful and it's so beautiful all around, not only just for us as the entrepreneurs, but also for the customers. So I'm glad that you said that. That was perfect. And I love that that's your approach. So let's do one final question as we wrap up here. I'm curious for anyone who is listening and is like, man, I could teach someone how to play an instrument out of my RV, or I could teach somebody anything out of my RV. What would be your top advice for them? What would be your number one thing when they're getting started?
Well, I think it's always great to have a mentor. So certainly if you can find someone that's already doing this, pick their brains. There is a wonderful community that Carly Walton put together called Teach Music Online. It's for music teachers, obviously, but she has a whole asynchronous course that is just really great for anybody who's interested in that. I'm happy to talk with anyone, if they have specific questions about that. But I think just, do your research. And then just go for it. My husband just walked in the door a minute ago. And, he always says, if you want to do something, the best time to do it is right now, because none of us are ever promised tomorrow. So that's why we weren't going to wait until we were retired or whatever. Don't fill in any blanks. Just if you really feel like this is something you're drawn to, then just give it a go.
I love that. So perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking this today. Tell us where we can find you online. I know we kind of alluded to it, but give us those specifics again.
Oh, sure. Well, Fagan, Fagan, FaganPianoStudio.com is my website. That's also the name of my Instagram page and my Facebook business page. And then, as I said before, RV Piano Teacher for anyone who just wants to follow our travels or any other music teachers that are interested in that end of the business.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll link to all of that in the show notes as well. It was so great to chat with you, and I appreciate you coming on with me today.
Oh, you too, Kimberly. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. I loved my conversation with Anna Fagan. She has such great insight, not only about being a musician and such a great story about taking out the bunks in her Class A motorhome and replacing it with a piano or a keyboard that sounds a lot like a baby grand. And that's incredible to me. I just absolutely love that. But really what I thought was amazing about her was the deeper conversation. First of all, how she loves change. And that's such an important part of our RV lifestyle. She loves the change, but she's taken something that she loves, the art of piano and being a musician, and brought it on the road with her to have that change, a different backyard every few weeks, like she said. I also love that she said just to be kind. That kindness goes a long ways. And I think that it's something that we often need to remind ourselves, especially as entrepreneurs, when so often we don't give ourselves enough grace and we don't allow ourselves that ability to let things maybe not go as planned. We're RVers. We know that things don't always go as planned. And yet I have found that many entrepreneurs beat themselves up a little bit too much when things go not according to plan. So I love that message of be kind, give yourself grace. I also really loved how she said, don't wait. Don't wait until it's too late to make this dream a reality. If you're sitting there listening to this podcast and thinking, I would love to teach music from the road, I would love to teach anything from the road, let this be your permission slip to take that next step forward. And just as Anna said, mentorship is so incredibly important. I have Roadpreneur, which is a school and a membership that is endorsed by RV Life and the RV Entrepreneur. And I would love to invite you inside so I can give you that same mentorship that Anna talked about. Being able to come together with other people, link arms with other RVers, roadpreneurs, RV entrepreneurs who are doing this and putting themselves out there. There's so much power in that, having that collective mindset. Who understands that things can go wrong, who understands the beauty of change, who understands all the different things that go into building a business that lets you travel. So I'd love to invite you inside. And of course, the best way to find that is by going to the RV Life website. So if you go to masterclass.rvlife.com, scroll on down, Roadpreneur School and Roadpreneur Community are both there waiting for you. So you can head on over, click that link, come and join us inside. And of course, as I always say, you're welcome to reach out to me anytime. Come and find me over on Instagram at Roadpreneur, over on Facebook. I love chatting with you. So come and say hi. And of course, join our RV Entrepreneur Facebook group. That's where so many great conversations happen as well. So go to facebook.com and you can type in the RV Entrepreneur and up will pop our Facebook group. So we would love to have you over there. So many ways to connect. I cannot wait to see what's next for you. Keep on doing your thing, be bold, be brave, and put yourself out into this world.